Hello and welcome to my final project. I am very excited to share it with you because I'm very proud of it. So as you can see, I have changed platforms. The Blogger website was far too problematic with formatting, and I knew Google Sites was reliable. So that is the first change. The second is I changed my home page so that I have a little bit about the author. In an introduction, I included more videos, and this is where my objectives are. I kept the What is Literacy page, and I made it its own page rather than the home. I don't think I changed anything on this. I included more images, and you'll see this throughout the whole site. I have included more images, more YouTube videos, and I found a nice way to change the blocking colors, so it really breaks up the content visually. And this is where most of the change occurs, on these two sets of pages, technology and literacy, and then parents and literacy. So for technology, I broke down most of the content into 3 separate pages so that it wouldn't overwhelm the readers. It's the same content, but I also explained it a little better. So for engaging with technology, I explain, this is where I talk about choosing films as an example of how you properly choose technology and how you become engaged with it. And so I also added graphics and broke it up since this is a very text-heavy slide. And this is another change as well. For e-readers, I talk about how e-readers are a great way to develop literacy, but it's important to select correct e-readers for each situation. Just because you have technology doesn't necessarily mean it's going to help develop literacy. And so I found a great YouTube video that talks about the benefits of digital readers, and I included the list of how you can select great resources for e-readers. And here I have the parents and literacy page. And I'm pretty proud of this page. I think I really did a good job with it visually. So up here I say, for students to actually develop literacy skills, they have to be engaged. And if you want them to be engaged, you want them to be successful. And this is where I talk about if everything is okay at home with their homework practices and stuff like that, it will trickle down into their performance at school, and therefore they have a better chance of developing literacy. And so here I say, here are some simple family practices that lead to student success, and, that's old content. But then I also include, here are family activities that also develop literacy. And here I talk about homework help and access to literacy materials, which I had under a construction page on my Blogger account that I was just waiting to include somewhere, but I wasn't sure how to include it. And this is also where I moved the resources for families of libraries. And then also a fellow student in her peer feedback gave me a tip about Find Virginia, which is the Library of Virginia. And it did really have great resources, so I included that. Now, for teachers in literacy, this is a very text-heavy border, but I thought it was a very important quote, so I kept it, and it talks about the importance of content area teachers stressing literacy, because that's where we're going to get students to become more literate, is if we make sure they're learning reading and writing in every class other than English. So this is mostly the same content. Right here I added, this is an interactive PowerPoint. Click on an icon for more information, so that was easier to understand. And I also included here because click on the book to see it on Amazon, because that was also an option, but I don't think people knew that. So if you click it, it goes to the Amazon page. I also here talk about some information about, for teachers with ELL students, difficult text, that they shouldn't simplify things for ELLs. Rather, they should actually make it a little more rigorous for them based on research. Another nice visual I added. And then here is schools and developing literacy. And here I added a little bit more of a narrative to explain why it's important for schools to reach out to parents, especially ELL parents, and what that actually has to do with literacy. So here I talk about how schools are important for, connecting with parents, but usually that doesn't involve literacy for the normal family. But for ELL families, they need to bridge a gap a little bit, and if they're more active, the family becomes more active, the student becomes a little more active in their school community, and therefore they perform a little better, and then therefore they'll probably become more literate, or not literate, they will develop more literacy. And then here I say, here are some very basic tips to help out ELL families. It's the same content. And then this is my final thoughts page. It's kind of a conclusion, like a call to action. And here I talk about test scores of reading. And it was a little tricky because there is actually an extreme lack of data for certain years, especially for Loudoun County. But I made a graph, and like down here, I even show my spreadsheet and my sources. And I essentially talk about how what we're doing has been working and has been helping, but very little. And if we want to see more change, we have to stress literacy more in the classroom. I also included my reference page so that it wouldn't clutter up all of my posts. I did include my references under the graph because I think it's very important to be able to see where I'm getting that data, but for the most part, all my sources are found here. Oh, and the last change that I have is down here. Have any comments, questions, or concerns? Click here, and it goes to a Google form in which they have to enter an email. So let's pretend it's something. They have to type in a name. Then it's, what's your reason for contacting me? Do you have a question? Do you have a concern? And then after that, they can evaluate the website. It isn't required because some people don't have time, but if they do have time, there's some questions of contact, professionalism, what would you improve? My one thing that I'm a little upset about for switching to Google Sites is I could not find a way to include a translation, which I thought was the best part of Blogger. And I looked, and it's because Google Sites code is based in Java. It's not HTML, which is an issue, but will probably be fixed one day since it is a Google product. Regarding peer feedback, the biggest change I made was splitting up my content into shorter pages and really adding a lot more visuals to break up the text, because that's a lot of the feedback I received. I had great content, but it was just a little too textbook looking. From your feedback, I added a lot more narrative to my research. I kind of have that problem with writing where I think it's understandable what I'm putting out and then it doesn't make sense. And so I explain why the things are important to literacy and why what I'm showing is important. I'm extremely happy with my final product. I'm going to put it on my e-portfolio for sure, and I think that I might add to it as time goes on. I'm very proud of it. So thank you for a wonderful course, and have a happy holiday.